The air was thick with the scent of lavender and aged parchment, a scent that clung to the heavy wooden door as she pushed it open. Inside, Mara's workshop was a sanctuary from the chaos outside. Shelves lined the walls, overflowing with spools of thread that glimmered faintly in hues of silver, gold, and deep sapphire. Ancient textiles hung from the rafters, their patterns intricate and alive with a magic that whispered secrets only the oldest tailors knew. The room was dim, lit by a single lantern whose flame flickered like the heartbeat of the very fabric that surrounded them. Mara herself was seated behind a worn oak table, her silver-streaked hair braided tightly against her head. Her eyes, sharp and luminous, regarded Elin without a word. The older woman's hands moved with the grace of a master, pulling a slender needle through a patch of midnight blue cloth that shimmered as if woven from the night sky itself. Elin's breath caught. "You are the silent seamstress," she whispered, awe coloring her voice. Mara nodded once, her expression unreadable but not unkind. She gestured to a worn chair opposite her, inviting Elin to sit. The apprentice's fingers trembled as she settled down, her gaze fixed on the delicate dance of needle and thread. "Fabric magic," Mara began softly, "is not merely about weaving threads. It is about weaving life, history, and intention into every stitch. But there are weaves lost to time techniques that the guilds have forbidden, fearing their power. I have preserved them." With no further words, Mara lifted a length of cloth and began a silent demonstration. The threads pulsed with a faint light, intertwining and unraveling in an intricate pattern that seemed to shift and breathe. Elin felt the magic tug at her senses, a resonance deep within her bones. "Show me," Elin breathed, reaching out. Mara's eyes softened. "Then you must unlearn what you have been taught and listen to the fabric itself." Days stretched into weeks as Mara guided Elin through the ancient weaves. Their lessons were silent conversations, hands weaving, unraveling, and reweaving threads that shimmered like liquid starlight. Elin's confidence grew with each practiced stitch, the magic flowing more freely, yet demanding a deeper respect and connection. One evening, by the dim glow of candlelight, Mara revealed a hidden tapestry concealed beneath layers of dust and cloth. The image was haunting. Figures of majestic tailors, the Threadwright court, in a moment of catastrophic collapse, their faces etched with determination and despair. The colors were faded, but the story was clear. The guilds had not only rewritten history, but had nearly erased the Threadwrights from memory. They were the original creators, Mara said quietly. Their magic was pure, unbound by the constraints the guilds later imposed. But fear and envy led to their downfall. Elin's heart clenched. The legacy she carried was heavier than she had imagined, but also more vital. As the chapter deepened, Elin practiced the newly learned weaves under Mara's watchful eye. The fabric responded to her touch like a living entity, threads glowing and pulsing with latent energy. She could feel the power to unmake and remake magic itself stirring within her fingertips. Yet, with every stitch, a question lingered: how much could she change without unraveling the very world she sought to save? The silent seamstress's lessons were more than technique. They were a call to remember, to reclaim, and to fight. As Elin prepared to leave the sanctuary of the workshop, the weight of history and hope intertwined like the threads she now commanded. Outside, the alleys of Loomhaven waited, dark and restless, but Elin was no longer just a street urchin. She was a thread in the greater tapestry of revolution, ready to weave a new destiny. And somewhere in the shadows, unseen eyes watched, waiting for the moment Elin would reveal the true power of the silent seamstress's gift. Her journey was only beginning. In the shadows of narrow alleyways, Elin moved with practiced stealth, her patched cloak pulled tight around her slender frame. Every footstep was measured, every breath controlled, as she navigated the labyrinthine streets toward the heart of the Guild of Weavers' domain. For weeks, the rebellion had gathered rumors of a dark pact brewing between the guilds and outside forces who sought to monopolize the very essence of fabric magic. Tonight, Elin intended to confirm those whispers and, if possible, disrupt the impending threat. The grand hall of the Guild of Weavers loomed before her, a towering edifice of stone and stained glass that shimmered faintly with woven enchantments. Guards patrolled the perimeter, their cloaks embroidered with the guild's sigil, a silver spindle entwined with a serpent. Elin slipped past them, aided by a shadowy figure, Sarah, a nimble and trusted ally whose quick wit and deft fingers had saved them more than once. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of fresh dyes and aged parchment. The corridors twisted like the threads the weavers so expertly manipulated, leading Elin deeper into the guild's sanctum. She kept close to the walls, her eyes adjusting to the flickering candlelight that cast long, dancing shadows. In a secluded chamber, muffled voices reached her ears. Peering through the crack of a heavy wooden door, Elin spotted Master Varin, the Guild of Weavers' formidable leader. His violet robes shimmered under the candlelight, embroidered with ancient silver sigils that pulsed faintly with magical energy. Beside him stood Councillor Draylen, an elder whose shifting robes betrayed his secretive nature. The two men exchanged a sealed scroll, their expressions grave. Elin's pulse quickened. This was no ordinary meeting. She and Sira exchanged a glance. The stakes were higher than they had imagined. Carefully, Elin retrieved a small, enchanted mirror from her satchel, angling it to glimpse the scroll's contents. Her sharp eyes caught the intricate weave of arcane scriptan alliance forged between the guilds and mercenary factions from beyond Loomhaven's borders, promising mutual control over fabric magic and its resources. A cold wave of betrayal washed over her. This collusion not only threatened the rebellion, but endangered the entire city. The guilds, sworn to uphold tradition and protect their craft, were instead conspiring to tighten their grip, silencing any dissent. Sira's whisper broke the silence. "We need to warn the others." Elin nodded but hesitated. The revelation complicated everything. How could they fight a power so vast and intertwined? Trust within their ranks would be fragile after this. As the meeting drew to a close, Elin and Sira slipped away, navigating the hall's maze-like passages with renewed urgency. Outside, the cold night air bit at her face, sharpening her resolve despite the storm of doubts. Back at their hideout, Elin spread the stolen scroll before the gathered rebels. Murmurs rippled through the room as the truth settled among them. "They've tied themselves to mercenaries, outsiders, who care nothing for our city or its people," Elin said, voice steady despite the weight pressing upon her. "We face not just the guilds, but a coalition determined to monopolize magic itself." Questions flew. How to confront such overwhelming power? Could they trust their own allies? The path forward was perilous. Elin's mind raced, recalling her lessons from the old tailor, the secrets hidden in the threads of history, and the legacy she carried. This betrayal was a knot tangled deep within the fabric of their world, but if unraveled with care, it could be undone. She met Sira's eyes. "We must adapt. Our fight is no longer just against the guilds, it's against a web of deceit that spans beyond Loomhaven. But we will find a way. We have to." Yet, tonight, the city pulsed with a new, fierce energy. The central square, once a place of quiet commerce and whispered deals, was transformed into a stage for revolution. Elin, standing atop a rickety wooden platform, scanned the sea of faces before her teller's apprentices, common focal, bound by shared suffering and a desperate hope. Her breath caught for a moment, the weight of what she was about to do settling in. Around her, torn banners fluttered in the evening breeze, their fabric frayed but still vibrant with rebellious colors. The scent of damp earth mingled with smoke rising from distant fires, a grim reminder of the city's simmering unrest. Raising her voice, clear and unwavering despite the pounding of her heart, she spoke. "Brothers and sisters of Loomhaven, for too long we have been bound by threads woven by those who seek only to control and enslave us. The guilds have stitched lies into the very fabric of our lives, denying us the magic that should belong to all. Today, we cut those threads. Today, we rise." A roar erupted from the crowd, a wave of sound that swept through the narrow streets and alleyways like a tidal force. Elin's words had ignited a fire, and it spread with furious speed. From the shadows, figures emerged, apprentices with clenched fists, outcast tailors brandishing enchanted needles and scissors, and ordinary citizens armed with whatever they could find. The revolution was no longer a whisper, it was a storm. The clang of metal and the crackle of magic soon filled the air. In a narrow alley, Elin moved with practiced grace, her patched cloak shimmering faintly as she wove her magic. Cloaks twisted and rippled, becoming blades of living fabric that sliced through the air, cutting down guild enforcers who had once seemed invincible. Beside her, Raffin darted through the chaos, his quick smile never faltering even as he parried a blow from a glowing thread whip. "Keep moving. Focus your magic on their sigils," Elin shouted, her voice a beacon of command and hope. Myra, fierce and unyielding, fought like a tempest, her leather vest rippling with defensive enchantments that absorbed blows meant to fell her. She moved with a warrior's precision, weaving protective wards into the fabric of the battle itself. Amidst the tumult, Elin's mind raced. The guilds were powerful, their magic deeply entrenched and their resources vast. But the revolution drew strength from something the guilds lacked, unity born from shared pain and the burning desire for change. Yet, she knew this fragile unity could easily unravel under the pressures of war and betrayal. In the dim light of a hidden cellar, Raffin and Myra tended to wounded comrades. The scent of herbs and candle wax mixed with the metallic temps of blood. Their whispered plans sketched the next moves in the revolution's grand design, each word weighted with urgency and hope. "We can't let the guilds regroup," Myra said, her voice low but firm. "If they reinforce their sigil magic, it could crush us." "We'll disrupt their patterns," Raffin replied, eyes gleaming with determination. "Elin's plan is our best chance." Back at the heart of the uprising, the final confrontation loomed. Elin ascended the steps of the Weavers' Hall, the seat of the dominant guild of weavers, where Guildmaster Varel awaited, draped in indigo robes woven with silver threads that shimmered with power. Varel's cold gaze met Elin's fiery resolve. "You dare defy us?" he demanded, voice like silk laced with steel. "I dare to unweave the lies you've spun," Elin replied, standing tall amidst the gathering storm. "This city belongs to its people, not your gilded cages." The tension crackled like static electricity as the two forces prepared to clash. Around them, the city held its breath. The battles that followed were fierce and unrelenting. Magical garments became weapons robes that could slice through stone, cloaks that shielded from the deadliest spells, and gloves that manipulated the very threads of reality. Each skirmish wove a new pattern of resistance and sacrifice. Yet even as victories were claimed, Elin felt the strain of leadership weigh heavily upon her. The revolution was not a tapestry easily mended. It was a living, breathing fabric fraying at its edges. Trust was fragile, and old wounds threatened to tear the movement apart. But she pressed on, driven by the vision of a world where fabric magic was free, shared, and vibrant. As night deepened, the city's skyline shimmered with the flickering lights of fires and the ethereal glow of magic. Elin stood upon the battlements, her gaze fixed on the horizon where dawn promised a new beginning. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger and sacrifice, but the fabric of revolution had been woven and there was no turning back. "This is only the beginning," she whispered to the wind, her voice carrying the promise of change. And with that, the kingdom of threads began to unravel and to be reborn. Master Coldrith's garment was unlike any she had seen. The silken threads shimmered faintly with an otherworldly glow, and intricate patterns pulsed softly under her touch. The sigils, she realized, were not mere decoration, but a living conduit of magic. This was the source of the guild leader's dominance, a hidden language, woven into their clothing that amplified their control over fabric magic. Her mind raced as she recalled the whispered rumors and half-glimpsed secrets she'd gathered over months. The guild's power was not simply skill or tradition, but a carefully guarded system of enchantments embedded in their very garments. These sigils had been lost to common knowledge, but here they were, glowing defiantly in the dim light. "Elin," a voice whispered behind her. She turned to see Tamsin, eyes alight with urgency. "We can undo this. If we can find the right pattern, we can disrupt the sigil's power." Together, they set to work beneath the flickering glow of enchanted lanterns. The room filled with the clatter of needles and the soft rustle of fabric as they wove a counter-pattern, a complex design intended to unravel the sigils. Magic, Tamsin's hands flew over the threads, weaving with a deftness born of desperation and hope. Elin guided the pattern, her knowledge of the ancient Threadwright's techniques illuminating their path. Outside, the city simmered with unrest. The revolutionaries whispered of change, but none had yet struck a blow this direct against the guild's power. Tonight, that would change. The next day, the guild hall buzzed with uneasy anticipation. Elin strode into the grand chamber, her patchwork coat heavy with the counterweave. The guild leaders gathered, draped in their sigil-embroidered robes, faces stern and unyielding. "Masters of the guild," Elin began, voice steady despite the storm of emotions within. "You wield power not earned by skill or honor, but by deceit woven into your very garb. This ends now." She revealed the counterweave, holding it aloft. As she stepped forward, the sigils on the guild leaders' robes flickered and dimmed, their glow fading like dying embers. A murmur swept through the chamber, shock, disbelief, and an undercurrent of fear. Master Coldrith's eyes narrowed, but even he could not deny the unraveling of his power. The hall fell into a tense silence, broken only by the soft rustle of fabric and the pounding of hearts. In that moment, the old order began to fray. Elin's revelation was a beacon for the oppressed tailors and apprentices who longed for change. The revolution gained momentum, emboldened by the knowledge that the guild's dominance was not invincible. Yet, as the sigils faded, Elin felt the weight of what was to come. The guild leaders would not relinquish their power quietly. This victory was but a thread in the vast tapestry of a struggle that would test every fiber of her resolve. She met Tamsin's gaze, determination mirrored in her eyes. "We've begun to unravel their hold," Elin said softly. "Now we must weave a new future, one stitch at a time." Outside, the city's fabric magic shimmered with newfound possibility. the patterns of power shifting beneath the surface. The battle for Loomhaven's soul had entered a new, perilous phase, and Elin was at its very heart, weaving hope from the threads of rebellion. Elin crouched before a cluttered table, ancient scrolls and tattered fragments of cloth strewn about like pieces of a broken puzzle. Her fingers trembled slightly as she traced the faded sigils embroidered on the fabric, the threads whispering secrets long buried beneath the weight of guild lies. "Look at this," she murmured, her voice barely audible over the silence. "These symbols, they're not mere decoration. They're markers of the original Threadwrights, erased from every official record." Mira leaned in, her fiery hair catching the lantern light as her eyes widened. "Are you saying the guilds fabricated the entire history of fabric magic?" Elin nodded, biting her lip to steady the surge of emotions threatening to overwhelm her. "More than that, the system was designed to enslave, to control. The guilds suppressed the Threadwright bloodlines to monopolize power. Outside, the city of Loomhaven carried on unaware, its bustling streets a stark contrast to the solemn revelation unfolding below. Hours later, in a narrow alley veiled by the night, Roland slipped into their circle, clutching a bundle of parchments wrapped in worn leather. His scarred face was etched with fatigue and fear. "You need to see this," he urged, spreading the documents on a makeshift table. "Guildmaster Vares has been orchestrating experiments to bind fabric magic to bloodlines, ensuring no one outside their control can rise." Myra's eyes flashed with indignation. "This changes everything. We have proof." Elin's gaze hardened. "Then we must act. The people deserve the truth." The following day, beneath the vaulted ceilings of a forgotten hall, Elin addressed a growing crowd of revolutionaries. Her voice carried clearly, unwavering, despite the weight of her words. "For centuries, the guilds have woven lies into the very fabric of our lives," she declared, holding up the ancient cloth fragment. "They erased our history, stole our heritage, and shackled our magic to their greed. But no longer. The Threadwright legacy lives in each of us who dares to dream of freedom." The crowd stirred, whispers swelling into chants of defiance. Faces once marked by fear now glowed with hope and determination. Yet shadows lengthened beyond the walls. Under the cover of darkness, guild enforcers moved swiftly, their enchanted garments gleaming with lethal intent. The rebel base became a maelstrom of clashing fabrics and desperate cries as Elin and her allies fought to hold their ground. Amidst the chaos, Elin's mind raced. The truth had been revealed, but the path ahead was fraught with peril. The revolution had ignited a fire that could either forge a new dawn or consume them all. Her fingers brushed the torn fragment at her side, its faint glow a reminder of the legacy she carried and the choice she must make. "This is only the beginning," she whispered, steeling herself for the trials yet to come. Elin's footsteps were soft against the cobblestones, her breath a steady rhythm as she and Daron slipped through the shadows. They moved with practiced ease, whispers of their plans weaving between them like threads in a tapestry, fragile but vital. "Are you sure the others are ready?" Daron's voice was low, his pale blue eyes flickering with a hint of doubt beneath the hood of his worn cloak. Elin glanced at him, the dim light catching the tangled strands of her dark hair. "They have to be. The guild's grip tightens every day. If we don't act now, there won't be a tomorrow worth fighting for." He nodded, but something in his gaze was distant, almost unreadable. The night seemed to grow heavier, the silence stretching between their words. Suddenly, a harsh clang shattered the quieter metallic echo that ricocheted off the walls. Before Elin could react, glowing threads sprung to life, coiling through the air like serpents. The guild enforcers emerged from the shadows, their dark armor shimmering with enchanted sigils, faces hidden behind masks that seemed stitched from nightmare. Elin's voice was a whisper of disbelief as she realized the trap. Duran's calm facade fractured for a split second, guilt flashing across his features before he raised his hands in surrender, stepping back as the enforcers closed in. Elin's heart pounded fiercely, the betrayal slicing through her like a jagged seam. She dove to the side as a net woven from shimmering threads snapped taut, the magical fibers tightening with crushing force. Her fingers dug into the cold stone as she scrambled away, breath ragged. The shouts of the enforcers chasing her through the labyrinthine alleys. Adrenaline surged, sharpening her senses. She wove her own magic, unraveling strands of the enchanted net with precise, desperate movements. Each thread she cut felt like a small victory, but the weight of Darren's treachery pressed on her mind, threatening to unravel her resolve. Hours later, in the dim solitude of a hidden room, Elin confronted Darren. Candlelight flickered against ancient tapestries as she faced the man who had once been her closest ally. Why? Her voice trembled, a mixture of hurt and anger. All this time, you betrayed me. For what? Power? Safety? Darren's eyes, so often a source of comfort, now held only cold resignation. I did what I had to. The guilds offered me a way out, a chance to survive. You and your rebellion were doomed from the start. Elin's fists clenched, the scent of aged fabric and smoke filling the room. You don't know what we're fighting for. You never did. He turned away, the shadows swallowing his figure. Maybe, but the city doesn't care about legacies or magic. It cares about control. And I chose survival. As dawn crept through the cracked window, Elin stood alone on a rooftop overlooking Loomhaven, the city sprawling beneath a bruised sky. The weight of betrayal settled deep within her bones, a bitter thread woven through her heart. Yet beneath the pain, a fierce determination burned bright. If trust could be so easily broken, then she would have to weave a new fabric, stronger, more resilient. The rebellion needed more than allies. It needed unbreakable bonds. And Elin would find a way to bind them, or die trying. The city below was restless, the threads of fate tightening. Somewhere in the shadows, the guilds were preparing their next move. But Elin was no longer the girl who scraped by on scraps of enchanted cloth. She was a force determined to unravel the lies, stitch by painstaking stitch, and the war for Loomhaven's soul was only beginning. The betrayal had cut Elin deeper than any blade. Trust, once a comforting thread in her patchwork of alliances, now lay frayed and tangled. As she gathered her closest confidants in the safety of a secret hideout, the atmosphere was heavy with unspoken fears. "We can't afford another betrayal," she said quietly, her gaze sweeping the gathered faces. "We need to be smarter, to watch each other's backs." A young apprentice nodded, her eyes wide and earnest. "What about Darren? Should we try to find him?" Elin shook her head, the memory of his cold eyes still fresh. "No, he's lost to us, but we'll learn from this. Our strength comes from the truth we share, not lies we hide." The rebellion was a fragile weave of hope and desperation, but Elin knew that even the strongest fabric could be mended with patient hands. The path ahead was perilous, but she was ready to face it, trusting only what she could see, feel, and create with her own hands. Beneath the rising sun, the city of Loomhaven seemed to hold its breath. The threads of betrayal had been pulled, and the tapestry of revolution began to unravel, revealing both danger and the possibility of new patterns to come. Elin took a deep breath, the cool morning air filling her lungs. The cost of trust was high, but the price of surrender was far greater. With every fiber of her being, she vowed to weave a future where betrayal could no longer find purchase. The fight was far from over.